or one who makes the intention for Umrah joined with the Hajj al-Qiran. Concerning this, Allah says, whoever performs the Umrah in the month of Hajj before performing the Hajj must slaughter a sacrificial animal such as he can afford, but if he cannot afford it, he should observe a fast of 3 days during the Hajj and 7 days after his return to his home. The sacrifice as a ransom, fidya. This is the sacrifice that is obligatory upon the pilgrim if he has to shave his hair due to a disease or some harm. This is based on Allah's statement, and whoever of you is ill or has an ailment in his scalp necessitating shaving, he must pay a fidya ransom of either observing fast for 3 days or giving charity by feeding 6 poor persons, or offering a sacrifice of a sheep. The sacrifice as expiation. This is the sacrifice that must be made by one who hunts land game while a pilgrim. As for animals caught from the sea, there is no penalty in such a case. This issue was discussed above. The sacrifice of the one who is not able to complete the rites of the Hajj due to illness, the presence of an enemy, or anything of that nature, while the person had not made an exception condition for such cases while enter the inviolable state. In this case, Allah says, but if you are prevented from completing them, sacrifice a sacrificial animal, a sheep, a cow, or a camel, such as you can afford. The sacrifice due to sexual intercourse. This is the sacrifice that the pilgrim must make if he has sexual intercourse during this Hajj, as was just discussed. The Umrah. The Umrah is one of the greatest acts of worship and one of the most virtuous means of getting closer to Allah. By it, Allah raises His servant in rank and removes from him sins. The Prophet encouraged its performance both by his words and his actions. He said, one Umrah until the next Umrah is an expiation for what is between them. The Prophet also said, follow up the Hajj and Umrah by performing them together, for they remove poverty and sins like the blacksmith below removes impurities from iron, gold and silver. The Prophet himself performed the Umrah, as did his companions during his lifetime, and after his death the essential components of the Umrah, entering the inviolable state, which is inclusive of the intention. The Prophet said, verily, all actions are based on intention. 2 and 3. The circumambulation of the house at Tawaf and the circuits between As-Safa and Al-Marwa, Sa'i. Allah has said, then let them circumambulate the ancient house, the Kaaba at Mecca. Allah has also said, verily As-Safa and Al-Marwa, 2 hills in Mecca, are of the symbols of Allah. Furthermore, the Prophet said, perform the Sa'i, for Allah has obligated the Sa'i upon you, cutting or trimming one's hair. This is based on the hadith of Ibn Umar, in which the Prophet said, whoever of you does not have a sacrificial animal should circumambulate the house, go between Al-Safa and Al-Marwa, trim his hair, and exit the inviolable state. The obligatory parts of the Umrah. It is obligatory upon the one who intends to perform the Umrah to enter the inviolable state from one of the miqats, even if he were already within the confines of Mecca, the visitor inside. Mecca must go outside of the area and enter the inviolable state from a proper location, as can be seen in the Prophet ordering Aisha to go to Tan'im, to enter the inviolable state there. The time for making Umrah. The Umrah may performed at any time during the year, however it is most virtuous during Ramadan. The Prophet said, an Umrah during Ramadan is equivalent to a Hajj. The permissibility of performing it before performing the Hajj. About performing the Umrah before one has ever performed the Hajj, and he replied that there is no harm in that. He further narrated that Ibn Umar said the Prophet made Umrah before ever performing the Hajj, making more than one Umrah on a visit. The Prophet performed 4 Umrahs in 4 years. In each of his visits, he did not perform more than 1 Umrah. Similarly, his companions with him also did not perform more than 1 Umrah on each visit. It has not reached us that any of them ever performed 2 Umrahs in 1 visit, regardless of whether it was during the Prophet's lifetime or after his death. The only except to this was the case of Aisha, when she had her menses during her Hajj with the Prophet. The Prophet told her brother Abdur,